Guatemala will be the first country in Central America to publicly prosecute a former head of state. The country's courts have ordered Rios Montt to stand trial for genocide and crimes against humanity that he is accused of committing during his dictatorship 20 years ago. But can the region handle such a high-profile, controversial case, and what precedent will this set for future global justice?
Rios Montt is a former general in the Guatemalan military. He assumed power by a military coup in March of 1982, and he was in power for 17 months until he was deposed by another military coup in the fall of 1983. What he did upon assuming power was to quite consciously shift the way that the war in Guatemala, which had already been going on for some 20 years, was being prosecuted by the military. His predecessor had presided over a very sort of scattershot form of state terror, and Rios Montt came to power proclaiming that he was going to rationalize and systematize the military's counterinsurgency effort against a small series of left-wing insurgent groups operating in the countryside. The Truth Commission at the end of the war, which found that as many as 200,000 people were killed and over 600 villages were massacred, also found that between 40 and 50% of those deaths and of those massacres in Maya villages were committed just during that 17-month period that Rios Montt was in power.
There's so much injustice, there's so much violence, there's so much hopelessness for so many people in Guatemala, where the president elected democratically is the person who was in charge of these massacres in the Ixil area, President Otto Pérez Molina, who stated that there was no genocide in Guatemala. He's closed down the National Police records, which is where a lot of the prosecutions have come from. So there's a really hard environment here, and just this announcement that Rios Montt would be tried here in Guatemala was pretty emotional. A lot of people feel like this is a vindication for a place where genocide is really denied.
What are the politics of this? You have a president who has been implicated in the very crimes that Montt is stand accused of. So what's going on here?
Yes, I think that we have to read the larger context in which the trial is going on. I think obviously it's a historic trial to prosecute Rios Montt. But I think that if you look at the larger context, we have to see, of course, this is a culmination of struggles from victims' rights. But why is it the trial happening now and not before? In the context of Otto Pérez Molina, as Zach said, denying the genocide. I think it serves some political purposes as well for the United States that wants to see, United States foreign policy that is in the best interest of the United States to see Guatemala as a democratic country. So we have to be very cautious about the impact and the larger context in which the trial is happening.
This really, I agree completely that we should be both celebrating this incredible victory for the people that have worked so hard to see justice in Guatemala, but we should also be cautious about how we interpret this particular moment. And along those lines, I would say that the precedent here in some ways is as significant globally as it is locally. This is the first time that a former head of state has been prosecuted for genocide in the domestic national courts under where the crimes occurred. And so in this sense, Guatemala is ahead of the curve. I do think that also the judiciary in Guatemala has gone through some tremendous transformations in the last 2 years, so that the judicial institution does seem up to this project. I think what we say is that sometimes the law catches up with the evidence here. But we want to also recognize the dilemmas with perhaps the military also maintaining significant power.